Welcome to another edition of Radio Influencers, a podcast series we're doing for Radio Update. I've got Brent Hoodenpyle with me. How you doing, Brent?
Doing very well, Andy. How are you, sir?
Good. Even though I've known you for so long, I always feel like I'm mispronouncing your name.
No, that was pretty good. I'll take that. I'll take that. Absolutely.
What's the worst way anybody's ever pronounced it? I get Meadows all the time.
Oh, do you really? Wow.
Yeah.
No. Hood and nipple is the worst.
Oh man, you just really hurt yourself there because that's all I'm going to call you going
Yeah,
forward.
I know, right?
But you've been nice enough to write a whole bunch of articles for Radio Update that have done really well on the digital side and the sales side. So thanks for doing that.
No, yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been fun. I hope it's been a benefit to people.
So to just kind of set you up, I know I've known you forever, but you're a sales and digital expert. I mean, you're one of the smartest sales people I know, and you're one of the smartest digital guys I know. So I call
Thank
you
you.
for all kinds of stuff. But you want to give a little bit of your background in both of those to just kind of tell people what you do?
Yeah. So I started the internet, and I guess sales and persuasion has always kind of fascinated me. So back. I mean. I'm dating myself. Even before the internet, I was always interested in, guys that were direct response copywriters and people that would send stuff through the mail and get people to, send them money. That always seemed like
Yeah.
just pure alchemy to me that you could write a sales letter and people would get out their checkbook and, you know, put it in an envelope and send it off or something. And those guys were always kind of interesting to me. And so I studied them. And then as the internet came along, um, man, I started about 2004 doing search engine optimization and things like that, and noticed that the internet was evolving into very much a direct response medium. Where it was kind of the same thing as sending a letter in the mail and eliciting a response, right? So the internet that's all it is today. It's Facebook ads, and you want a response. There's a call to action, and you want things like that. So that part of it has always kind of fascinated me, as has sales. I've always been amazed by people that are really good with words, that are really good with presenting their case and kind of making you want to change your mind about something that you maybe go into the situation with your arms crossed, and by the time you're done, it's like, okay, here's my money.
Yeah, yeah.
That whole process has always fascinated me. So I've kind of followed that road a little bit and studied it and worked in that field. So it's been good. I think the first thing we did with you, I think you had, was it your record that was coming out a long time ago,
It,
and we
it
did a
was
contest with you on Facebook.
yeah, no, I think it was, yeah, I mean the record had just come out, but I recorded a music video with Reynolds, and you
Yeah,
helped me get 10, I think we got like 10,000 views within a day because
yeah,
of
we
some
did good.
contest you helped
Yeah,
put together, where we gave away, and I don't even think we gave away a ton of money, but it worked really well,
I think it was a lot of T-shirts. I think there was a lot, a
something
lot of
like that.
merch mainly. Yeah,
Yeah, usually my gimmick is money, but I don't know, maybe it was the t-shirts that time.
it's a
The
good gimmick.
yeah.
It's a good gimmick.
Um, So I read an article that I wanted to get your thoughts on recently. I don't really know this guy. I mean, I know of him, but he's a radio guy named Chris Blunt. He wrote an article, good name, by the way. Wrote an
Hmm.
article for Jacobs Media recently where he echoed a point that I've made a couple times that I caught a lot of flack for. So I was kind of glad to see somebody else stepping out and saying something similar.
Hmm.
But basically, he said broadcast sales MO hasn't changed in 20 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Prospect, CNA, customer needs analysis, pitch, close, rinse, repeat. And his point he was making that I've kind of made before too is that it takes a minimum of 2 meetings to purchase advertising from almost any radio station. Even if you know 100%, I want to buy radio advertising, I want to get it from this station that I love, it still takes 2 meetings. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we're on the right page, that that's a little nuts, that it hasn't adjusted?
No, I think that's something that people are facing industry wide. I think even in the trades, like even in sales and stuff, like whether it's a roofer, or uh, I mean, even consumer to business, right? Like I've been working closely with a carport company. I'm doing their marketing and things like that now. And the thing about them is they're open, 8 to 5, as most businesses are, but you get a lot of leads coming in afterwards. I worked at a Sleep Number for a while, and you would see the same thing. All these places are uh, having to extend their hours because people are buying differently these days.
Yeah.
People they don't want to come into a place. They don't want to talk to you on the phone. If they can do it by chat, if they can do it by email, if they can do it online, if they can do it while they're sitting in bed or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, they're going to do it that way, and you will sell stuff. You will sell stuff just by staying open later. So it would make sense too that in the radio industry, when you're doing business to business marketing, that the ILMO would have changed there too. And I think people, I've been on both ends of it. I mean, I was working at doing the marketing for a really big air conditioning company in Dallas Fort Worth. There's like 5,000 air conditioning. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
competitive
Super
market.
crowded market.
Yeah, and so we were talking about maybe doing some advertising with you guys, and I thought it was a great when you were at the ranch. I thought it was a great idea. But what you from the other side of the table that I got to see it from is people are more savvy, and I think we wrote about this in one of the articles. People are more savvy about the return they're getting on their investment dollar these days. They know this guy knows if I hand out this many flyers, I'm gonna get this many sales calls. If I'm gonna do this, if I send out this many direct response pieces, I'm gonna get this many book calls. And the internet has only made that even worse. If I spend $100 on Facebook, I'm getting $1,000 back, and I can track every single bit of that. And I don't think radio's even really recognized that's a hill that they have to overcome. Radio is largely
Yeah.
branded
I think,
advertising, which isn't bad.
but jumping off that point, what kind of made me first say a statement similar to what Chris Blunt said was a couple of my friends that owned businesses that had nothing to do with radio but liked radio told me their story about trying to purchase advertising and how it was really frustrating because they already knew they wanted to buy, and it took forever to get the meetings, to get the back and forth. And they're just like, why can't it be purchased through a website? And I'm like, well, it could if they would be open to, if radio would be open to sell it that way. When I've tried to do it through a couple of, when I've had some of my consulting clients do it and I've walked them through the process, they were super reluctant to even try it, but it does work. Now, granted, it's not going to capture, not everybody's going to buy radio advertising that way, but who cares? You don't need them all to. You know what I mean? You're just looking for
Right.
people that they don't need a meeting with a salesperson to decide what they want to purchase that particular, and maybe it's 10%, 20% of advertisers. Doesn't mean, whatever percentage it is, you don't want to lose them.
Yeah, and that's the change the internet has brought, and even COVID has brought, is that people are buying stuff sight unseen.
Right.
Again, whether it's a bed, whether it's a carport, used to be you would go in, you'd go to the showroom, you'd look around, you'd do the measure. People are just like, okay, fine, let's book it right now. And so I think the challenge today is to match the way that people want to buy.
So, Brent, is the solution to, going back to prospect, CNA, pitch, close, is the secret to changing that dynamic for at least a percentage of the advertisers selling through the website, directly through the station website, or is there a better way that we should be doing that?
I mean, that's a great question. I think you want to give people the option to purchase online. I mean, just the way people are buying is changing. I think whoever is going to win the game in any industry in any field is going to be the ones that match that way. COVID changed a lot. The internet's changed a lot. Just generational changes are different too. So I would definitely. The thing about the internet too is you can try it out. I mean, if it doesn't work, you haven't like built a new building. You've put up a web page, and so all marketing I think really is testing to see what works. But I would definitely move toward the idea of when somebody's there ready to hand you money, do whatever you can do to take it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the other thing that I know I've shot myself in the foot before, because in radio, one of the things we used to say is if you can't spend X amount of money, don't bother because it takes this
Yeah.
amount of saturation to get results from radio.
Yeah.
And, when that statement right there kind of hurts that guy that's like, I just want to try it out. I only have a small budget. Uh, that runs that person off. And I used to think, well, that's not bad because I can't get him results. But maybe the answer is trying to figure out a way to get him results with a smaller budget and selling him a small package.
Yeah, it's managing expectations, right? I think some sort of, it's tricky, some sort of a direct response uh, offer, I think is the best. You can say, hey, this got this many clicks to your website or whatever, or just, if he has a limited budget, piggyback it off a major promotion that he has. If he's just doing stuff in between sales or whatever, maybe he'll get more, maybe he won't. But you hear so many radio, commercials now that, hey, use promo code whatever, and I think that's a great idea. I think anytime you can have people doing that, that's great. And I know if you got unused airtime, slip it to those people, Um, but that's the thing. I think people are especially with Facebook ads and with Google and Instagram and YouTube, they've been kind of conditioned these days to make the small purchases to see if it works before going all in. So whatever you can do to match that, I would say is a really good idea.
Yeah, so it's still important that you're putting together a solution that will actually get them results. But like you said, we all have unsold inventory, and it just, if it's going unsold, you might as well get something for it. And B, we all have all these little things that aren't sold. Like we have all these kind of programming features that aren't sold all the time that we're doing anyway. You might as well attach a sponsor to it and get something for it. And maybe that's a solution for that buyer that only has a little bit of money. Uh, I just off the top of my head.
Yeah, Jeffrey Gatomer was I haven't seen much stuff from him in a while. He may be retired by now, but he wrote the Little Red Book of Selling. He wrote the Ultimate Sales Bible. Really good guy and good stuff. And he was always about leading with value. And he said, the best sales presentation is one where you just go in there and you pour on so much value that they feel like an idiot not to buy, right? So if you have all that, I know you're only buying this much, but you know what? We typically have this much unused inventory. I'll make sure you get this too. And also, whatever other, whatever other parts of the NASCAR car you haven't sold, I'll get you an ad here. I'll do whatever. And so when you can go up front with that and say, I know you're only buying this much, but we really want to try and get your results. And we're going to add this much value and just layer it on, that's, I think, what people are missing in sales. You want them to feel stupid for not taking advantage of your offer. And then in turn, when you bring them on as a client, you also want to teach them how to make those same type of offers. You want to teach them how to layer their business with so much value that the customers and consumers out there are like, man, I got to call this guy, right? That's the whole name of the game. I feel like all we do is sell them the airtime and just say, well, you'll up it again next month. It's like, if they make it or not, it's on their own. But I think the more you can take that on your own shoulders and gain expertise in doing that yourself, the better results you're going to get, and you'll have people lined up. I mean, if you can provide value and show them how to provide value that they get results, why wouldn't people advertise with you?
Well, so two things to jump on there that I want to expand on. When you say the NASCAR car and all these things that you have to sell, one of the major things that radio doesn't sell enough of is all our digital assets. So that's a perfect fit for that person that's used to buying Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and all these other things. And the other thing you mentioned in there, that there was something you said earlier that made me think about a thing I've seen take place a lot, where I call talking through a sale, where you have that buyer that actually is already ready to buy, but you're so stuck in your process that you just go through the motions of, well, we got to go back to the station, we got to go over all this, we got to come up with that guy's already ready to buy. Let's just go ahead and close the sale here, and then go back to the station.
Yeah, I would always see that a lot, is that a prospect would ask the salesperson a question, and the salesperson would go right back into the spiel. And the question might have been just a yes or no question, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it's like, or, you can turn it around to say, hey, is this available Saturday? Is that important to you? Are y'all, what's important about, find out why they're asking that question. But most people will just keep going into their spiel and just saying it over and over. Yeah, the least you say, the better. The least, I mean, the fewer words you say, man, when they're ready to hand over their wallet to you, their card, just take it and figure it all out later. I mean, they've made up their mind. They're ready to buy. But yeah, salespeople are really good at talking people out of sales.
Yeah. Well, and the one that throws, and this gets me in a lot of trouble when I mention this, but the one that throws a lot of salespeople and sales managers is one of the easiest questions you should be able to answer. In somebody that's not in radio doesn't understand why it's so complicated to tell them how much a 30-second spot cost. And the
Right.
reason it's complicated is because we have all these different day parts that have different values. And so there's a rationale for why it's not an easy question to answer, but
Mhm.
it really ticks off non-radio people when they ask us, how much does a 30-second spot cost? And we go, well, that depends. You know, we can't
Yeah.
give them the straight answer.
Right, right. And just the easiest analogy you can make to that is possible. I mean, A, what's your budget? What are you hoping to get? But B, it's like, well, I a 30-second spot, in the Super Bowl or
Yeah.
the cable news network. So I think if you break it down to really easy analogy, people are like, okay, yeah, I get it. Well, what's in between the Super Bowl and Wayne's World?
Right. Yeah. Expanding on a couple of the articles you've written, the most powerful and overlooked weapon in your sales arsenal is a good story. Why are stories so helpful in sales?
Oh, they're huge, man. We are hardwired for stories as humans. People can't resist hearing a story. Tom Schreider, who's a network marketing trainer, he told a great story of if you're up at the beginning at the front of a room and you're the speaker, you want to try to calm down the room. Okay, everybody, take your seats, take your seats, take your seats. Nobody listens to you. But if you go up there and you say, I was just not going to the bathroom and a funny thing happened to me, at least the first few rows are going to start listening to you, right? And that's going
Yeah.
to spread throughout the room. When you start telling a story, people can't resist it, and they also see themselves in the story, right? And I would just do that, anytime you have an objection, somebody, well, I read your reviews online and it said this. Well, I don't know anything about that, but this guy down the street bought this last month, and he had this, and he said, he's never slept better in his life. Or you know what, this guy bought some advertising from us, on our morning show last month. Said his phone rang off the hook. Any. So you have it's incumbent on you to collect stories. It's even more important reason to follow up and be invested in your client's success. It's so that you can a help them measure what success is, so you can see that they're being successful through you, and also so that you can have a good story for next time. Have a good story for those objections that people come up with, because people, I mean, there's bad reviews, for the Four Seasons. Name
Yeah.
the nicest place you've ever been. They have a bad review on the internet. Was that a accurate review? Maybe it was. Maybe somebody had a really bad experience there. But you need to have then a better story in place that people can counteract that review, but B, they can see themselves in the story and see themselves getting the same result.
Yeah. The headline that you wrote, as the editor, I get to see everything as it comes in. And you sent this one in, and I thought, oh man, this is going to ruffle some feathers. Not that never makes me not want to print something. That makes me want to print it because I
Right,
like sharing
right.
challenging views. But the headline was traditional radio advertising is dead. Do this instead, I think was the end of the title. But can you kind of expand on what you meant by that and why you wrote that?
Yeah, I mean, I always go for clickbait, right? Start with clickbait is my number one rule, and then fill in the article around it. Um,
But
but
clickbait that's not followed by substance doesn't work, and
right,
that
right.
worked.
No, I had a I was working with these guys, and back before Facebook tanked all their pages, I'd work with these guys, and I was doing some article writing for them, and basically we had like 7 formula headlines that we would just intertwine together, and we were getting incredible reach on Facebook posts, like hundreds of thousands. Is insane. And so, yeah, you got to have substance to back it up. But I mean, what my point is there is kind of what we just talked about, is that radio advertising, kind of, you touched on this earlier. You said it hasn't changed in the last 25 years. It's probably even the last, I don't know, 100 years. Whenever I'm sorry, I'll knock my computer off. Whenever radio first started advertising, in the beginning of radio, it was the thrill of being on the radio, right? It was the medium is the message. If you're on there, doesn't matter what you're saying, you're somebody, right? And that probably even was a thing up until, first part of this century, right? But now you got Spotify, you got Pandora. I mean, those things are still popular. The medium still is a message. That's why we still have YouTube influencers that are crazy rich, right? But for radio, that's a harder sell these days, because it's the thrill of just hearing yourself and having your business be on the radio and being noted like that isn't probably as powerful as it once was. Plus the fact that people are so able to track their advertising dollars, I think it makes it a much harder job for the radio salesperson, in the sense that they have to show people these are the results you're getting for your dollar. And so my point in that article was, you have to, I think radio needs to move away from just a branded approach of, hey, you want to run your ads on the radio? Because people know they're running Facebook ads, they're running Instagram ads, they're running Google ads, they're running, car dealers know exactly how much money it takes to get somebody on the lot. I mean, they don't even know the lot anymore. It's to get an internet message, an internet inquiry, Everybody knows how much it costs to get a customer these days. And I feel radio is kind of acting like they don't have to play by that rule. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to have that statistic available. Well, these many people are more likely to buy if their DJ recommends it. I think that's right. But what does that look like for me? If I spend this much money, what can I expect back? Because I need these justified. And so I think the point of that article is that the radio salesperson needs to be able to navigate the whole funnel of the customer so that they can justify to that customer why they should spend money with them.
Well, and like you said earlier, the buyer is so much more savvy than they used to be. So I'll see radio folks telling people how many people are in their market when they're trying to sell, and it's like, oh, you do know that there are other radio stations in your market. People are smart enough to know that you're not 100% of the people in your market aren't listening to your radio station, but they'll try to sell kind of like it's the same sort of thing as you'll see some of those, the things that they print up and put in restaurants and stuff that they print up probably, in a market with 1 million people, they probably print up 1 million of those and put them in restaurants. And it's like, and so if you try to buy an ad in there, they'll tell you, oh, we print up 1 million. And it's like, well, how many get in people's hands? You actually have that number, I know, because you know how many you're throwing away when you go back, but they don't want to share that number. It's the same thing with radio. I mean, these buyers are getting too savvy to take hey, I'm in the Metroplex. There's 4 million people here. Okay, well, how many are, It's Andy Meadows, the host of Radio Influencers. When we were recording this episode of the podcast that you're listening to or watching right now, both Brent in East Texas and us here in DFW were being hit by some pretty big thunderstorms. He was a trooper and fought through it, including power issues, internet connectivity issues, but the final time we connected, the audio wasn't quite as good. However, I hope you'll continue to listen through it because he has some great insight on things radio could improve on digital-wise. So a couple of things that radio could do to improve that is we need better audience estimates, and there are a couple companies working on this. I don't want to go too far into detail because they're not to market yet, but I'm not saying don't subscribe to Nielsen and Eastland and all those. Definitely continue to do that. But it's the model we got. It's better than nothing, but we need a way to more accurately tell exactly how many people are tuning into the radio and when, so when we're asked those questions by advertisers, we can say, well, when your spot ran, here's exactly how many people were listening. And I think that would help, don't you?
I think it would help a lot. I think though the thing you're still up against is, I always make this kind of analogy when I'm talking to business owners. I mean, I kind of like helping the small business owner get found on the internet, right? And get found in the Google Maps and get found on that first page of Google. And it's like going to the high school football game. You go to the high school football game and all the businesses in town have bought the banners around the football field, right? There's the insurance guy and the plumber and whatever. And if I'm at the game and I need any one of those people, I'm probably going to call them because they're supporting the team, they're local guys, they're all this stuff. There's goodwill there. I'm probably going to give them a call. But if I don't need what they have at that time and I need it later, I'm probably never going to remember them.
Right.
The thing with the internet, and especially with Google, over Facebook, over anything else, is that when somebody types in, I need a plumber, clogged drain, or whatever in my town, and they land on that first page of Google, they're in the buying mode. They are looking for somebody to hand their money to. Radio can't make that case for people. I can get you branding, I can get you out there, but it's like, I can get you known. Maybe the case is that, hey, so that when they do land on that page, they're going to recognize us. I mean, I think you have to tie everything back now to the internet as the main form of advertising and realize that that's your competition. And you got to be able to justify why somebody should spend money with you versus jazzing up their website versus investing in Google ads versus anything else where those people are at the buying part of the buying cycle. If I'm a business owner, that's huge to me. And I'm going to really make you give me some other stuff besides, well, there's all these people that potentially could hear you. Now then, one of the things you could do is, Facebook has lookalike audiences, right? Who's your audience? This audience is the audience that does this, and we can help. Our audience is this lookalike audience or whatever. You maybe compare things that way. But man, it's a tough sell these days in that you are now in competition against other people who can get their ads in front of the consumer when they're ready to buy. And I think if you acknowledge that and can address that up front, you're going to be a lot more successful.
Yeah, and one thing that jumped to mind when you were talking about that, and that I wrote about recently, when I came back from NAB, I'd sat on a panel. I'd sat in on and listened to a panel where they were talking to people from the video game industry, and the guy made the point about how there's no way for radio. If somebody really likes, I forget the game, maybe Fortnite was, I think, the game he was talking about. If somebody likes Fortnite, there's a way for them to spend $10,000 a month on Fortnite. Right. There's no way for broadcast radio to do that.
Right.
And it made me, so the article I wrote about was, because I've been pushing stations to do this for years, and a couple of shows do this, a couple of stations have tried it, but they've never really committed. And this is a subscription model where you take just the most passionate. So the example I give is like, say you got a cume of 1 million people, like you're in a major market, you're one of the top stations, you got 1 million people listening. About 10% of those people are really, really passionate super fans of the station. That's probably it. So 100,000 people paying a couple dollars a month, even if it's $1, $2, that's $200,000 a month in incremental revenue. But you also capture information that helps you sell there, because when they sign up for that subscription, you're getting all kinds of info about them that they don't mind giving because they're super fans. And now you know a little bit more information about 100,000 out of that 1 million, and that helps you sell. Would that help?
Absolutely. And that's the old Dan Kennedy. Again, it goes back to direct response advertising. That is the key to me. It's the most honest form of advertising, I think, because you spent this much money, you got this much back, right? and it cuts through the BS. I mean, direct response. I would always marvel at the Addy Awards, right? I remember that used to be a thing. I don't know if it still is, but
It is, yeah.
yeah, and radio stations give each other's awards for the best advertisement. And it's like, how do you know? How do you know it was the best advertisement? What did it bring in? And that's the thing that direct response people would never do. I mean, if they had a winning ad, they would never share it with anybody else. They would never tell anybody else. You would just see it every month on the back of the National Enquirer, and if it's there every month, it's a good ad, right? Because that's not cheap advertising space. And
Sure.
so, and they test everything relentlessly, relentlessly. Okay, I have an ad that's working now. How can I make this better? And they're constantly testing stuff against that, right? So, direct response advertising, going back to the subscription model, is the Dan Kennedy thing, right? So, in selling information, you first get them to buy the book, right? Then maybe you sell them a course, right? And then maybe you sell them some group training, right? And then maybe you sell them the seminar, right? And then you sell them the individualized training, and then finally at the top you do it for them, right? So you have all these things at the top. Same thing with this. You got your base listeners, free, whatever. You like this information? Here's the thing you can join to listen to this more. Here's the thing you can join and just keep super fans, at the $100, $200 a month level, whatever. I mean, stop when people will stop buying, but there will people who will buy more than you really know if they're super fans and you're giving them what they want. And the cool thing about radio is you may be able to have 2 or 3 of those groups, right? You may be able
Yeah.
to segment your whole audience into 2 or 3 of those groups and have multiple. I don't know, but again, the only way you know is by testing it.
Well, the only way the subscription model actually works in radio is if you're creating content good enough to warrant it.
Right,
So like
yeah.
there's a show, Free Beer and Hot Wings, that has a subscription model that they do really well with, because it's a really good morning show at creating unique, fun content that works well digitally. So they have a passionate audience that's willing to pay a couple bucks a month to get access to that. So it comes back to how good is your content that you're creating every day, and is there a value they're going to see in it? But
Yeah,
that's
but your drive time morning audience is going to be different than your midday audience. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by the segmentation. Is each
yeah,
of those little people can have their own little thing driving people up the charts, and some people will be members of all of them. You know what I'm saying? That's your P1. That's your super fan. And if you give them the opportunity, they'll spend the money. I think it's a great idea. It hasn't been really fleshed out, maybe like as well as it could be, but I would definitely be moving down the road because the numbers are so big. Like you said, $2 a month, they don't even see that missing, and they get all these extra perks. And I mean, 100,000 people doing that.
well, and you have the power. So it needs to be a set it and forget it price of a couple dollars, and but as you go up the tiers, maybe that person could get free access to events, or at least access to a VIP section that the other people can't get into. And so there's got to be some perks built into it. But I think it's something radio with its megaphone could do really freaking well, and it ties together the old model of selling and the new model of how we need to be selling
I agree.
perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. It's actually pretty exciting, and this is the area where podcasters are leading the field, right? With the you see a guy with a podcast, and he's a guest on everybody else's podcast, and he has also the books on Amazon. Maybe it's free on Amazon, and then he'll have the Medium account or whatever, where everything's tiered up from there. Nice way to make a living, man. It's pretty cool.
Well, comedians have been way ahead on this, partly out of necessity. During the pandemic, they couldn't work. So I think they all jumped ahead quite a bit. So you'll notice every comedian has a podcast. The ones with successful podcasts also have a Patreon, and they take a portion of the people who watch their YouTube channel and they give them additional content that's probably a little racier, a little edgier, because it doesn't have to go under the YouTube censor stuff, and they make additional money that way. And there's no reason radio can't be doing that with some of our talented on-air personalities.
Yeah, and that is the way to go. It's crazy that radio has been so slow to embrace that. Is their head scratcher really?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for years. In 2019, I wrote "Radio isn't dying; it's changing," and I still, and that was 5 years ago. I still believe that radio isn't dying; it's changing, but it's changing much more rapidly than it used to be, and the window for it to embrace some stuff that it needs to really embrace is closing. So we do need to make some bold and it's part of what we do. What we're trying to push forward at Radio Update is some innovative ideas about way we could do things differently.
No, I agree. I listen to radio every day, and so it's definitely not a thing that is dead. It's just, but definitely there's a ton of missed opportunities in radio.
Yeah, to capture content, to monetize content, on both fronts. What going back to your articles on the digital side, you wrote a couple that really stood out. Do the work once and get paid. That's a great way to put it. But the value in some of this digital stuff being evergreen and being able to use it for quite a while.
Oh, it's huge, right? I mean, it's and if you had told, I think, a station manager or station owner back in the day that, hey, I mean, it would just fly off the air and it was done. Great show today. Cool, thanks. But now great show today. You can break that up into however many segments you want. I mean, like Theo Vaughn, his podcast is really good, man. He gets huge get. I mean, a wide variety of guests on there, right? I'm a Billy Strings fan, and I saw him. He had him.
Yeah.
And then the next week,
I saw that same episode. Yeah.
Yeah, and the next week he had Dave Ramsey or something or like a month later. It's like, what a variety of guests, and even to the point that I think he went to Ramsey's studio and went to his office building and set up his studio there so he could do the podcast. But all of those shows, whoever he's interviewing, and I'm not even really sure it's him doing all the stuff, but there's so many great clips and segments and shorts and reels that come out of that. And there are zero from radio. I mean, you'll see maybe Bobby Bones doing it, and even his stuff is hard to find. That's Bobby Bones. I mean, who's bigger than that, right? And so, it's astounding that they don't leverage the internet and YouTube and all the real space that you get the way that the podcasters do, and the podcasters are crushing it with this.
I've brought it up a couple. So I coach shows, and one of the things that I push all of them to do is put cameras in the studio. And I've been pushing that for years, but the difference now is the cameras are a lot cheaper. I mean, I'm talking on a $150 4K webcam, $150 is all, and it's got AI autofocus. I mean, I don't understand why every radio station doesn't have cameras in the studio. And when you do, you pair it with something like Riverside that we're using now. You could roll on your whole show, like whether you're talking or not, roll on the whole 4-hour show, and afterwards AI creates 10 reels from that are captioned and ready for you to go because you're basically turning everything into B-roll. Everything that you're not using is B-roll, but because you're rolling on the whole thing, audio and video, you've got the digital ready the second you get off the air.
Yeah. I mean, how powerful is that? And the cool thing about it, it gives you more value to provide to your advertisers, right? It gives you more value. You can package that up sort of a million ways that you want to. And that's some of that extra value you can add to the guy who just wants to make the small investment to test things out. And I think it's a huge missed opportunity because there's a lot of money and a lot of reach there too. You're getting people there from all over the world.
Well, and I think some of the hesitation comes from a good place in the sense that we're proud of the level of professionalism of the stuff that we do on the audio front. So we're nervous of making the leap into video and we think it's going to cost considerably more money than it actually costs. But the other thing I always remind stations, or they think I'm in too small of a market for this to work. Absolutely not true. People in small markets have the internet, just like everybody else, but you don't have to go so big in the beginning. If you watch early episodes of the Joe Rogan podcast, the video was terrible. He built that to get $100 million out of Spotify. The Kelsey brothers, when they started their podcast, the equipment. I mean, they're football players. They had money, so the equipment wasn't was pretty nice from the get go. But if in the year or two since they've been on, it doesn't hurt that he's dating one of the most popular people in the world. You know, but that podcast is now incredibly professional looking. It has sponsors for every and all the segments are like radio segments.
Yeah, of
They're
course.
stealing a page. All of them are stealing pages from us,
Right.
but we need to steal a page from them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. They are doing the new radio business model that radio won't do. A lot of radio won't do. And that's ignore that at your own peril, I would say.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good way to put it. The you wrote one about YouTube and some of the hacks that. Can you go through a couple of those that just some of those tips and tricks you shared about YouTube and what gets you a little more
Yeah,
traction?
YouTube is owned by Google. I mean, they're together. You know, that happened pretty quickly once YouTube started taking off. Google. This is what I tell people. Google's main obligation is to the people doing the searching, right? So even when you're an advertiser, you find that out. So when I search for something in Google, Google wants to, by and large, unless it's a political season, Google wants to give you the absolute best results possible, and they categorize everything. And there's 200 different like things they look at on a web page to make sure that it's they're giving the best content. You know, they look for on the page signals, off the page signals, content, uh, copy, all these things. And they never really tell you exactly how it's perfectly weighted because they don't want you just to duplicate that to get to the top, right? They want it to be
Yeah.
organic. So when you're doing a video, you want it to be indexable by Google. I mean, when you and I were kids, we had we went to the library. There was a thing called a library, and there was an old card catalog. They had a card for each one in this whole big file thing, and Google has that. It's like, what is on your card? So if you put a video up there on the internet and you don't really tag it or describe it in any accurate way, that's a blank card. Google doesn't know where to stick it in their system, right? So whenever they somebody does a search result, they're going to go to all those cards, find the ones that are the most relevant, and put it up there. So when you make a video, you know the topic of the video, and these are mainly, I think that we were talking about is interviews, and whether they be authors or TV show people or artists or whatever, you want to tag the artist in that video. Howard Stern show does a great job of this. I mean, he's Howard Stern, but his people do a really good job of showing what the video is. I mean, just go to, and I think I give a couple examples of his stuff in there. Go to his YouTube channel. Look what he does to how he puts the artist name in the title. They're singing a song, puts the song live in studio, acoustic, whatever. Any way you can do that to put the most important elements in the title of the YouTube video, it's huge. And then in that description box, you get a lot of space there. But the first 100 words are the ones that Google really pays the most attention to. So whatever the artist name is, put them there. Carrie Underwood in studio singing. She was on Howard Stern singing the Ozzy Osbourne song. Carrie Underwood in studio singing Ozzy Osbourne, the Mama song, whatever, I can't remember the name of it. But whatever. Billy Strings in studio singing, I think he's singing Cocaine Blues or something on Theo Von show. But whatever the subject is, put that in the title. Because the thing is, when you do a search for anything now on Google, it also gives you the option to look at the video search results. So not only will you be found on YouTube, but you're going to be found when people do searches on Google. And on YouTube, you start getting mentioned more in the recommended videos, right? Google's always trying to give to the viewer, to the searcher, they're trying to give the most relevant content. And so you want to it's really kind of common sense, just basic things. But if you don't do those, you're not going to be found. So whatever you can imagine somebody searching for in that video that they would be interested in finding it, artist name, artist song, the name of the show, name of the station, whatever, try to tag it in there. And then use it also in the description. And use that description box for other links too. Links to links to your subscription page, links to your main page, links to your mailing list, or whatever you can do to convert those people into long-term listeners.
Which is important because one of the fears I hear from radio people when you really push them on why aren't you doing a podcast, why aren't you doing more video, why aren't you blogging on your on the station website. One of the big things I get back when you really get down to the truth of it is they're afraid. They go, why would I record a bunch of videos nobody's going to watch on YouTube? Why would I record a podcast nobody's going to listen to? Why am I going to write a blog nobody's going to read? And that's the whole point. Is like, well, don't any podcast you put out is going to have no listeners when you first put it out. We all start from zero. You got to build it up. Any YouTube video, don't get depressed if you see that your YouTube videos aren't getting a ton of views, but learn from it and learn some tricks of, hey, Howard Stern's video got 23 million views. I know he's got a big following, but that's pretty impressive. How does he do his?
Yeah, and talk about interesting, relevant topics too. If there's something big happening in your town, a tornado, I hate to use a tragedy or whatever, but or a concert coming to town or whatever, or anything topical. Joe's take on the Cowboys game or the controversial catch or whatever. I mean, if you think your stuff, I understand you're saying you're putting it out there because you don't have an audience, but if you talk about interesting stuff in an interesting way, you'll get an audience, right? And so I would just keep doing that, tagging it. Not tagging is a bad word, but optimizing it the right way with the right keywords and things like that, and you'll build an audience. It will happen over time.
Well, it's kind of like, so I'm not an SEO expert. I've reached out to you about SEO a lot because you know a lot more about it than I do. But one of the things I've always been told, like the thing that has helped my consulting career more than anything is I blog just one time a week. But I've consistently blogged once a week for 5 years, and I send that out with my newsletter. But besides the fact that it gets some attraction in the newsletter, it helps me out from an SEO standpoint drastically because of the indexed pages. And that's something I don't think a lot of radio people realize. If they were blogging more on their station websites consistently, that creates a bunch of indexed pages that then help you from an SEO standpoint, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the things that Google looks for is kind of an authority score. And part of that is how long your website's been around. So start now. I mean, even if it's bad, start consistently and start now, because one of the things they look for is like, how long has this guy been around and how long has this guy been doing that? I mean, it's like, the guy that just opens up, hey, I'm a painter, or the guy that's down the street and he's been there for 5 years. Who do you feel better recommending to somebody? If you're Google, it's like, well, this guy's been around here 5 years. Let's look at what he's been doing. Okay, he's been doing all this stuff. Cool. I'm going to recommend him. So it just, all those things help you getting your pages out there properly indexed. I mean, it's huge. And longevity and consistency plays a major, major role in that. So good for you for doing that.
Well, I just encourage stations to do the same thing. I just think a lot of folks feel like, well, my talent is audio. I'm good behind a microphone. I'm good talking to a microphone. That's what I'm good at. I'm not a writer. I'm not a YouTube star. I'm not this, that, or that. But AI can help you write, or at least get it started, if not write it all for you. I'd encourage people to at least tweak it and make it their own. But AI can help with that, and you don't have to be. I mean, I'm not the best looking guy on the planet, but I jump behind a camera and I do videos, and I don't know what to do with my hands, and it's awkward. But
it has been awkward.
But yeah, but it's the world that we live in now. Visual stuff works really well, especially on social media. So we have to do that stuff. And besides, on social, they like real people. You know what I mean? It tends to work. You don't have to be. I was about to make a reference to a good looking actor, and I pulled somebody. I was going to say Harrison Ford, and it makes me sound incredibly old to use that as my reference. But you don't have to be so camera friendly in the way that we've always thought for it to work.
Yeah, and there's also things. Whether you use AI, whether you use an intern, whether you use speech to text as has been suggested to me. There are ways that you can just get that audio into print, and just use a video. I mean, so people like to consume information in different ways too, right? So, I mean, some people like watching videos, some people like reading, some people like listening to it. So, the more ways you can, again, it's the whole do the content once, reproduce it over and over and over again, and give it to this day and age. It's different. You again, I think I'd say the people that are going to win the game are going to be the ones that match the way people want to consume and match the way that people want to buy, because people have the ability to do that. And there's enough options for them out there that they're going to find the people that will sell to them and communicate with them the way they want to be sold to and communicated to.
Well, and the way you put about do the work once, the reason that resonates so well is because the other pushback is I have so many things on my plate, I don't have time to do it. And it's like, okay, well, great. Let's start with the things you're already doing and find a way to capture some of that digitally and turn it into digital content. And then we can build on that and do additional things and other things. But let's find ways to take some of the stuff you're doing within your air shift every day and just capture it in the moment to turn, and that's where cameras, in the studio will help a ton.
So easy, so easy. Yeah, and it's, I mean, you can do it or not do it, but there's a lot more advantages to doing it for sure.
The any other general thoughts on radio programming or digital?
No, I mean, I think radio programming is fine. Everything's local, you want to I think promote the local area as much as possible. I'm out here in East Texas, and my favorite station is the little station from Marshall. They still have the funeral report. They you hear the rodeo report every day. You hear the kids from Panola College or whatever, and you hear all the local businesses presented. So I think that everything starts locally, and so I think that is the biggest connection to make. However, when you can do these other things to leverage the things that are broader on the podcast, on the YouTube video, when you have the artists come in, when you have so and so come in, when you have whatever topical thing that can happen, use that for all it's worth. And for your local people, I mean, how many times have you heard this? I mean, you were on the local radio stations. There'd be people listening from all over the world on the app because of the local aspect. So I think radio programming is fine. I think what they're doing with their programming and the way they're selling the ads is the advertising is the biggest problem.
Yeah. Any other radio update articles from other folks recently that have caught your eye that you wanted to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I can't remember the ones. I think I referenced a couple. I mean, Reynolds stuff is just, it's like a whole college course you're getting right there, right? I mean, it's from one award-winning filmmaker and producer, and I mean, that guy did all the live at Billy Bob stuff. I mean, that's the real deal. I wouldn't sleep on any of his stuff. And everything I've seen has really been pretty good. It's like, it's making me...
Yeah, every time I talk to Reynolds, my stuff improves, because when you'll talk to him, he'll go, "What's up with your lighting?" And I'm like,
yeah, no, your lighting's
yeah.
really good. Yes, I have...
Well, that's Reynolds. That's Reynolds.
No, it's really good.
Yeah, we did a podcast, and he sent me a link. He goes, "You need a better light." He sent it to me.
Nice.
Which one to get, but that's where it's so beneficial to talk to guys like that, because they can help you not waste a bunch of money, because they can steer you into not buying the wrong camera and not buying the wrong light and things that start to add up,
Yeah,
really
I went
quickly.
with the literal talking head look today. Is what was my...
Oh, you referenced to Stephanie, an article that Stephanie Blue wrote in one of your, I don't remember which one you...
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one it was, but it was pretty apt. She made some good points. I can't remember exactly what it was exactly.
Yeah, and that's been the fun thing about, I know she's up in Michigan, I think. we've got contributors from all over the country. And so it's been nice getting those different perspectives. And we always encourage, anybody watching this podcast, we pay contributors. We want all kinds of opinions coming in from all different aspects, different radio jobs, people outside of radio that have opinions on radio. We really want to hear all kinds of, and we don't ever edit the opinion out of it. We edit grammar and typical things, but we never edit the opinion out. You can share whatever you think.
Oh, well, I'm glad to know that now.
Some of your headlines we might try to talk you into toning down here, but no. Oh, the counter you wrote to that, not to make it all sound negative, you wrote 5 reasons you should have a career in radio sales, and you went through some of the real positive things about being a radio sales account rep.
Yeah, it's the old Jim Rohn thing of make the $1 million, not for the $1 million, but because of the person you'll become in the process, right? And radio sales especially is you're out in the community, right? Yeah, you do want to have, like we were talking about at the beginning, the option for people to buy however they want. If they just want to buy online, that's fine. But for the most part, you're out there really meeting people, and I think that's a huge thing. Just any there's job web boards, okay, that have thousands of jobs posted every day. At the end of the day, they're gonna give that job to somebody they know. Rarely does somebody send in the perfect resume and get the job. Everything in the world is done by jobs and connections. So when you're out there meeting people, putting your best foot forward, learning how to talk to people, learning how to present yourself, learning how to beat the competition by making yourself better, it's very cool. It's hard. It's very hard, right? It's like, especially at the beginning, it's you're not making a lot of money, but it's one of those things, if you stick with it, you will. And I just think the skills that you develop by doing it, and the person that you become on your own, just making yourself a stronger person, and the connections that you're going to make in the process, and the fun you're going to have. I saw you guys. You guys weren't. You guys didn't miss any of the big ranch parties or anything like that, and
yeah, it's a lot of hours, but it's a reward. It's certainly a rewarding career, and there's a lot of perks that come with it, and a lot of getting to be behind the scenes and see some really cool things behind the curtain that your average person doesn't get to see. There's a lot of upsides to work in radio, certainly.
Yeah, a lot of upsides, and especially if you're a younger person, man, go for it. Get out there, and I think this, again, the skills, the connections, the money you'll make, it's gonna be a good career. You gotta do the work, and it's not for the faint of heart, But it's a really cool thing, especially if you have a passion for music or radio, or if it's politics or whatever station you're working on. I remember, I'm from Arlington, Texas, and I remember when the Rangers, Texas Rangers, came there like in 1972. I was didn't even know enough to know about baseball then, but when they got there, I can't remember, even as late as the 80s, I think Eric Nadel, who was even now is still the play-by-play guy for the Rangers, I think in the off season he would go out and sell advertising himself. How cool is that you're the play-by-play guy, and you're standing behind your product enough to go out there and do the hard work that it takes to make it happen. So it's very rewarding work, because you're keeping them on the air. You're keeping the station on the air. It's a good connection for the community. And as my girlfriend Cynthia says, stories are about connecting people. And when you're out there, you can be the connector. You can tell good stories. You can be the connector with people. You're going to meet a lot of people. This is what we talked about in one of the articles too. You want to be the go-giver. You want to, as Bob Berg says, you want to be the connector. Find out what people need. Man, I need a plumber. Man, I need somebody else to do with. You know what? You should talk to this guy. You should talk to this guy. You should talk to this guy. We had a mutual friend who introduced us, who was one of the best connectors ever, and that's what people. I mean, I name dropped that guy everywhere we went, just
Yeah.
because he was so good at that. And when
You talk about Mazika or Manning?
Musica, yeah.
Yeah, Musica. Yeah, he was phenomenal at
I
it.
mean, he had a I say Rolodex. Nobody knows what that is. He had a contact list in his phone that was, amazing, and all of them would take his call. That's the thing. And so he was really good at being that person. And when you can do that and become that person, man, the sky's the limit for you if you take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I know you're fighting through storms today. We're fighting through storms here. Another really rewarding part about radio is that we are one of the last places that's still able to help in things like an emergency in small markets. In medium and large markets, there's still other folks that can help out, but especially in small markets, it's radio. When we were driving down to Georgetown for a wedding last week, and we were 30 minutes away from that tornado that hit Temple. And so you're glued to the radio the entire time, making sure kids in the car were trying to not get hit by a freaking tornado as we're driving down the road. Who do you turn to? Terrestrial radio,
Oh yeah, no, every day I mean, that's what I listen to. I have my stations. I know what's on at what time, and it's from talk to country to gospel to back to talk, whatever. It's it's a very cool thing, and I'll even tell you this. There's times I've heard a song on the radio here in East Texas, made a video of it, and sent it to my friend, living up there in Hearst or whatever, and saying you need to live in a town where this is what's on the radio, and that's just it's, the local radio station is so powerful, and I think there's still a lot of opportunity there, and it's amazing. A local station can reach the whole world now, just doing a few of the right things with kind of following the business model the podcasters have set up, and just doing the work once and getting paid over and over. It's a good model, man.
Yep. Well, thanks for fighting through the storms today and jumping on with me and doing this.
Yeah, we had some technical issues. Sorry about that, man. But we had power was off and on here all day. So I'm glad
we've been, and you're so, I'm so gun shy now. Like every time a storm hits, I feel like I got it because we've had so many. We've been 30 minutes away from about 3 tornadoes in 2 weeks. So
oh wow!
It's like,
wow.
Yeah, it's scary stuff happening here.
No, we've been pretty lucky out here so far this year, but it's crazy weather. We'll take the rain though, right?
Yep. Thank you, Brent Hoodenpyle. Talk to you soon, man.
I never should have told it. That's what I want edited out. Thanks, Andy. I'll talk to you later.
Radio Influencers is a radio update production. New episodes are released on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.